I want to die. My father wasn't one to offer complaints unbidden, but I'd asked how he was, so he told me. A year earlier, I would have been fighting back tears. Now, I just nodded. I got it. At age 90, William Shatner had just gone into space. At age 90, my frail, rail-thin father could barely walk down the hall without help. He needed help to change his clothes. He needed help to brush his teeth. He needed help to go to the bathroom. He seemed like he could keel over any minute. My sister and I were sure he was hanging on for Mom. He'd often ask us, "What are we going to do about Mom?" We were all exhausted from his 2 decades of decline from a neurological ailment that affected his digestion, his balance, his blood pressure. He'd sometimes get so dizzy he'd faint. We hated to see him barely existing, going through his empty days in such a diminished state. But there was Mom. She had mild cognitive impairment caused by taking Valium since the 1970s. Way more Valium than we'd realized. Much more robust than Father, though not in great shape herself, Mom was always sure she was the one on the verge of death. She'd tell us she was dying on Tuesday, and then again on Friday. When she asked me to cut her hair, she said, "I want to look my best, even if I'm 6 feet under." One day, a physical therapist was scheduled to come over at 1 to help her with some pain in her legs. Father texted to ask us to cancel the appointment. "Mom says she's dying," he wrote, "and she'll be dead by 1. She didn't die. Meanwhile, Father got weaker and weaker. He needed more and more help. We'd hired a caregiver part-time, but the rest of the time, my sister was the main caregiver, even bathing him sometimes. When she took a 3-week trip, I had to take over. That's how, one day, I found myself wiping my father's butt, something I'd never thought I'd be doing. Had he done it for me when I was a baby? I had my doubts, given I was born in the 1960s when most fathers weren't changing diapers, but it wasn't the time to ask. Instead, I quickly did the necessary task in silence, then tossed the latex gloves and wipe I'd used in the trash. The air was close and rancid. I bent down to help Father pull up his Depends and sweatpants. He grunted, then grimaced as he held onto the nearby sink to hoist himself up. I supported his arm as we made our way slowly down the hall to the bedroom. There, he eased himself into his chair, where I would help him change into his pajamas, take his pills, and brush his teeth, in a bedtime routine that would take nearly an hour. "I'm sorry you have to do this," he said softly, looking down at his lap. I patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, I'm glad I can help you." I really was, and I wished I could be anywhere else. A couple years later, Father sat down in his chair one night and died, a mercifully quick death after his prolonged decline. We were relieved it was quick. We were relieved his years of suffering were over. Even Mom, though unconsolable, admitted she was relieved about that part. I was relieved I'd never again have to wipe his butt. But I was glad that when he'd needed me to do it, I did.